Hello everyone. Research abstract is an essential part of most research reports, including research papers and research theses. Despite its importance, many student researchers and junior researchers find it difficult to write good research abstracts. This brief presentation is to find out the what, why, when, and how of research abstract. In other words, what is a research abstract? Why do we need to have a research abstract? When do we need to write a research abstract? And how is a research abstract constructed, or what are the components of a research abstract? These are some of the questions that I will respond to in this presentation. So let us first begin with the what of the research abstract, or in other words, the definition of the research abstract. A brief summary of the research background, aims, questions or hypotheses, methods and results, also implications and conclusions. A summary of these, a brief summary of these important components is something that we call a research abstract. In other words, a brief summary of the process and product of the research process or the research project. We can also call a research abstract as a miniature replica of the research paper or the research thesis. So it is actually a replica of the whole process, but it's a miniature replica, and that actually means presenting the whole research project, including the processes of it, the aims of it, the methodologies involved in it, and the main conclusions in minimum possible words will be considered as the abstract of that particular research. We now move on to the second question related to research abstract, and that is why. So why do we need research abstracts? Well, to begin with, I must say that after the title or the name of the research project, the part that gets most readership is actually the research abstract. And the reason for this is that this is a very important part of the research report, because the research abstract actually gives the reader a general insight into the aims, process, and product of the research study. Similarly, it helps the readers decide whether they need to read the whole research report, that is the whole thesis or research paper, or not. A reading of the research abstract, which is just a few hundred words actually, will help, will assist, will guide the reader to go and further explore the research report, or just to stop there, keeping in view the relevance that the research abstract will indicate to the reader. Then it saves time and effort on the part of the reader. So the reader is saved time and effort, because generally, in most cases, if the research abstract is written well, and if it is a true representative and replica, miniature replica of the whole research thesis or research paper, it will give a very good insight to the reader whether he or she needs to read further, and as a result they will not waste their time in reading reports that might not be very useful to them. The next thing because of which there is need for research abstracts is that it gives insights into the quality of the research. Generally, good quality of the abstract in terms of language and presentation and in terms of the ideas that are reflected there will give insights into the quality of the whole research paper or research report. If the research abstract, the quality of the research abstract is not very good, that might be a very good indication of the quality of the larger report in the form of a thesis or a research paper. We then move on to our third question, and that is, when should research abstracts be written in a research report? Well, although this is generally a part of the initial pages of the research report, it is written towards the end of the research process. A researcher will be able to write the research abstract only if they have kind of very good idea or understanding of the whole research process and outcomes. Because the research abstract, as I said earlier, is a replica of the whole research process. So without in-depth understanding and knowledge of the whole research process, it is almost impossible to write a research abstract. So that is why it is written at the end of the research process, when the researchers have a complete view of the whole research process, outcomes, and implications. That is when they are able to write the research abstracts. Now, the how question. How is a research abstract generally constructed or written? Here are some sub-questions that will answer the how question of it. Or in other words, what is actually included in the structure of the research abstract. So the first thing is, I have generally divided the research into 4 main parts. And the first 2 parts are very closely linked, so you could say 3 main parts. The first part is the background of the study. And this is in response to the question, what is the research issue? So the first part of the abstract should be response to the question related to the what of the research issue. And so some background, brief background of the research study of the research topic in the very beginning of the research abstract is very important. Then, why is the study conducted? In other words, what is the rationale of the study? This is something that will immediately follow the background of the study. And this also will be in a few sentences. Then we will, the next part in the abstract should be in response to the question, how was the study conducted? In other words, methodology of the research process of the research paper or the research thesis in brief, just in a few sentences, mentioning the methodology, the methodological considerations in the research process is something. So what was the nature of the particular research, and what were the data collection methods, what were the samples, and what were the data analysis methods, and in some cases also validity and reliability considerations in brief. This will be the next very important part of the abstract. And the last part of the abstract should be related to the so what of the research. In other words, what were the main findings of the research, what conclusions were actually drawn, and what are the implications of the whole study. Or in other words, what are the implications of the main findings, what are the implications of the whole study that has been conducted. So again, this will be very brief and very focused. So generally, because all of these will be very brief, these parts will be very brief, because generally the abstract in most cases should be around from 150 words to 300 words. There is some variation in the structure of the abstract in line with the requirements of particular research journals or particular research institutes or universities. There might be variation in terms of structure and in terms of the number of words or the length of the abstract. But generally, in most cases, the length of the word limit of the research abstract is between 150 words to 300 words. In other words, you have to actually give insights into the whole research report, the whole research process, in words that range between 150 to around 300 and 350. So that's why this is something that will that actually shows that you have to be very concise and precise in terms of the word count and in terms of the ideas that you want to give in the research abstract. Now, I would like to give an example based on the structure that I just presented. So here is an example of a research abstract from one of my research papers, and I have made some changes in order to make this clearer. So you can see that this is in around 230 words or something, and I have divided the different parts of the research abstract into presenting them in different font colors. So in the very beginning, the orange color, and then followed by the green color, and then the blue color. So you can see that the orange color is a kind of related to the question of what and why, or in the introduction part of the abstract. The green color is actually the methodology part of the paper, and the blue color is the finding, conclusions, and implications of the paper. So I would like to read this brief abstract so that you can have an idea of how actually reading an abstract involves. Reflection has been a complex and at times elusive educational concept. However, in many educational programs, it is often applied without acknowledgement of this complexity. Generally, the focus of reflection or reflective practice in teacher education programs is on the how of teaching or teaching methods in the classroom rather than on broader critical questions about the process and outcomes of education. So you can see that this just actually gives a background to and also identifies the issue that is related to the connotation and implementation of research. From this onwards, I move on to the second part of this abstract, that is the methodological. So I'll read the green part now. This qualitative case study aimed to actually to find out the perceptions of university tutors and student teachers involved in a postgraduate certificate in education program at a UK university regarding the connotation and implementation of reflection as a teacher education concept. So here I have actually indicated the type of research that it is, and that's qualitative case study. Data was collected through semi-structured interviews with 14 teacher educators selected using purposive sampling. So again, here methodological considerations including data collection and also data analysis processes and the sample have been mentioned. The data was analyzed using thematic analysis. So the last part is related to the analysis of the data. And now I move on to the concluding part of the abstract, and that is giving a brief kind of insights into the findings and conclusions. So now the blue part, findings indicate that practitioners often focus reflection on the how or method of teaching, ignoring the what or curriculum and why or aims of the process. So based on findings, it could be argued that the role and promise of reflection at the higher critical level is not clearly recognized and appreciated. This is what my conclusion is from the findings that I have. So the study implies that for a more worthwhile incorporation of reflection in educational programs such as the PGC in this study, the concept needs to be appreciated with its theoretical basis and its historical context. This is where I actually present the implications of the study. Now, this calls for inclusion of reflection with a more comprehensive framework in educational and teacher training programs. From this example, you can see that I have given a brief introduction to the issue, including the aims of this particular research. Then I have moved on to the methodological considerations of it, and again that's quite brief. And then I have moved to the main findings, conclusions, and implications of the research study. So this might not be a very ideal example. There might be much better examples of an abstract, but this is actually how an abstract is generally structured. I hope this brief presentation was useful for you. If you have questions, please don't shy away from asking those questions. Take care. Bye.